behavioral change consultant, Johanse Iodike, joins me on the Zoom line this morning. I could rest assured he's safe, TNT, parked, and about to get into our very important conversation. Johanse, great to see you, my friend. Good morning.
Morning, Jason. Morning to everybody. Actually, I don't know how safe I am. I pull aside in the shoulder for people flying down the shoulder. I swear 80 miles an hour. But anyway, God is good. I see.
Definitely. Look forward to our discussion. Obviously, we're dealing this morning with OCD. What's the acronym again? OCD, it's?
Obsessive Compulsive Disorder.
Obsessive compulsive disorder. I think we have all. Do you think we all have a little bit of OCD in us? For sure, I know for sure. I'm suffering from that for sure in certain regards.
Yeah, everybody have a touch of it, and let me break it down a little bit. Obsessive is when your mind preoccupied with a thought or a worry. Most times, it's preoccupied with thinking that something wrong or something off. Right? Compulsive means that you have the inclination to do something. So I'm compelled to do something. And then disorder. Now, a disorder, if you do something once or twice, you can say, well, it's a one-off, or it's kind of a habit, or you like to do it. But if it becomes a disorder when you have to do it, and if you don't do it, you don't feel things in order, which means, of course, it's in a disorderly manner. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I understand totally, and I'm trying to figure out now where's the sweet spot, what's the nice balance, because I'm thinking, I do think a human being could go through the journey of life without having a little OCD in them. But I think as everything else, some people go very extreme with it, and some people, well, I don't know if there are people who really don't. What's been your experience and research?
Well, you're saying people, we should go through life with a little touch of OCD, and I will disagree there because it becomes obsessive and it causes disorder in your life. That's where the issue is. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're obsessed with the thought that people judge you based on your look. So before you leave home, you have to change your outfits about 4-5 times, and you keep changing your outfit. And then because you're changing the outfit, you end up reaching late to work. Right? Now, that causes disorder in your life. You may have the thought that if I don't wash my hands, then the germs or dirt will be on my hand, and then I will catch a disease. So I have to wash my hand 10 times before I feel satisfied. But washing your hands so many times could delay other things in life. So the problem becomes when it starts to cause disorder in other areas of your life.
But isn't OCD a part of like a kind of a check valve to keep order? Because, okay, look at a simple example. When hanging clothes in a cupboard, right, my hangers must be in a particular direction. I'm not as intense where I must put all whites together, all blues, all reds, all greens, whatever. But I can have a hanger going east to west and the next one going, like the next direction. It's certain things must be in order. And I also look at OCD as somebody wanting to have order, a particular structure in their life.
Right, but that's the part. Sometimes we throw around these terms, which are mental illnesses or mental disorders, for other things that you just have a preference. So if your preference is having the hangers a certain way, okay. But now, if you can't function, if your hanger's not a certain way, if you need to leave home, let's just say a hanger break or you see something wrong. If you need to leave home and go and get that one hanger to make sure it's in order and that upset other areas of your life, then you could say you're reaching in the realms of OCD. But before what you're saying is just a preference.
Oh, so that's not really OCD then? That's just a preference and just trying to... Because I used to wonder if simple things where you need to have, like, a place for your keys must be in that particular area, or, it just, there are people who could function in the madness, and I guess everybody will have their structure and their template, but there are some people who need to have things in a particular way, a particular area, so that they can really function. I don't know if it's something to do with memory, if it's to do with just, again, order. I look at it as some form of order. You have your own personal order.
All of us have an order, but here's where it becomes obsessive, is if you can't function without the order, or if you have to do certain things to make sure it's in order, whether it's relevant or not. So I'll give you some extreme cases. I had a client who he needs to open and close his door at least 5 to 6 times before he really believes it is closed or locked, right? And that came from, and well, after doing work, because we had no idea where it was from, but after doing work, that when he was younger, somebody opened his door, a stranger, and walked in the house, right? So he had that thought and it became an obsession and it stayed in his mind and it became a fear. So that's why he was doing what he's doing. And him opening and closing the door, sometimes he would spend extra minutes. Sometimes he would do it in work. Sometimes he do it even in somebody else's house. So that's when it became a disorder, not just having his own order in home. And I want to make the distinction because sometimes we even use, and this is not digressing too much, we use these mental illness terms to sometimes shame somebody. So if you have your own order and somebody don't like your order, they can say, well, me have OCD or what, and then you might start feeling bad about it. But just know it's your own order. But it only becomes a disorder when it disrupts your life.
So this comes from, let's say, sometimes the OCD, from what you're saying, there's a correlation between a childhood trauma or some kind of trauma that could probably cause the OCD, from what you're saying.
Correct, because what I've realized, and again, this is, I would say, not my new research, because not many people who quote unquote have OCD come to therapy, but the cases I've had most times is from some sort of worry or some sort of trauma, right? And trauma could be something as simple as my mother only saying, I don't want you to embarrass me, you know, so you have to look a particular way. And so now when you grow up, you think that if I don't look a particular way, people will be embarrassed. And then now I have to make sure my hair look a certain way. I have to go to the hairdresser no matter, even if I have to go to the barber, no matter what, I have to look a certain way, and it becomes an obsession.
But isn't that in itself, again, you know, I guess our parents will probably, because remember they grew up in colonial times. Most of our parents, I mean, I guess if somebody have a young parent, but most of our parents, or even grandparents, would have been around in a time when the Union Jack was flying high over the country as opposed to our red, white, and black. So that particular upbringing, that colonial standard and style that was the norm back then, we've kind of moved away from it, become a little bit more Americanized, to be quite honest, and localized with our own vibration and structure. But lots of it came from that time, and I guess we look at, and I keep on bringing up this word order. Who could really function in this order? I mean, plenty of these instructions and I guess lessons that were taught by parents and grandparents was really based on a time when there was way more order compared to the disorder that we see today, you want to say. Because we don't have the order that we had back in the day now. That's the reality.
Well, the thing is, if you're speaking about past colonial time, most of the order, quote unquote, that we got came from some sort of trauma, and the order was enforced in a traumatic manner. So even when it passed down now, it's still obsessive because our ancestors were afraid if I didn't do this, then I had certain consequences. Then it come down with your parents and onto you, and some of it may not be relevant anymore. And that's where it becomes a disorder, because if we still holding on to something that's no longer relevant and we obsess about it. So my hairstyle is supposed to be a certain way. If my hair not a certain way, then that person is not a businessman. If my look is not a certain way, then if I don't speak a certain way, it is not this. So it becomes obsessive. So now we want to purport it and practice it so much that it's not even who we are anymore, and it becomes a disorder. So that's on one end, Jason. And then they say, no, we operate in disorder. I would actually say, and take this with a pinch of salt, some of it may actually be good because we need to break out of things that no longer are relevant to find what is relevant for this time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, change is constant, and, you know, times change, moments, people change. But I'm just looking at this whole OCD scenario because I've never really done a deep dive. This is the first time really I'm getting a real perspective on what OCD is, and I guess I was of the opinion that we all have a little bit of it in us, a little trait, and I kind of look at it, let's say for example, right? Because of what we're dealing with crime and criminality, sometimes I myself might, in the middle of the night, get up and just double check to see, just to make sure that the door downstairs was locked now. Is that a disorder? I mean, because sometimes I might be like, oh, I wonder if that door locked or somebody leave it open, boy, let me just go double check. Is that OCD?
No, if you do it, sometimes I wouldn't say that OCD, but let's just say our 7-day week, if you need to do it 6 times a week, then it can become, because now if it disrupting your sleep, now this is where the disorder comes in. Okay, every night I'm waking up, I wonder if the door locked, boy, next thing, somebody coming, next thing this, and it becomes obsessive. They can't even sleep, then it affect the next day at work, maybe your family telling them stay up too, you get an extra piece of burglar proof. That's when it becomes actually OCD. Before, I just making precautions. Before, I just double checking because it's not disrupting your life. So you don't have OCD, but when it actually starts to disrupt your life and maybe even the life of others around you, then you could call it a disorder.
So my question, as we look to wrap things up, when it's so extreme, what's the step to healing, to coming out of that kind of mindset? What does one do?
No, this is where sometimes it's difficult, because sometimes when you're in the obsession, you yourself don't know what's occurring. Because in your mind, this is how it has to be, and if it's not like this, then something wrong. So many times this is where support have to come in. Now, and that's why I say, even for me, I have few clients like this, because most people don't recognize it in themselves. It's only when somebody else bring them in, or this happens a lot. Maybe people bring in their children for help, and then we talking and we realize, hey, the parent maybe have the issue that comes to the child. So what I would say is, each person to analyze if the order that they have, if it is really relevant for their life, and if it is really beneficial to their life. And if you realize it's not, but you can't let go of it, then seek assistance.
I'll let you, as always, you have the final say on this very important talking point. I think we should have a part 2 to this at some point, because this is...
Yeah, I take a note of all the ones we have to do part 2. We have a few we have to do part 2 for.
As always, man, you have the final say, you say. Go right ahead.
People, it's okay to have your own order, but if you're so obsessed with your order that it's actually causing disorder in your life or the life of others, you need to release it and question why you're doing it. Don't make life complicated, because even though life is not easy, it's really not that hard. Thank you for listening.
You say IODK, thank you so much. Mental Health Matters, Thursday, a matter of fact, looking to pull the curtains down. Have a safe one. See you next week, man. God spare.
Thanks, man.